in some of the safety issues. I'll hit some of the high points. The 18-year-old changing the language from may to shall for a sheriff. I believe that there are some rural sheriffs that are very well in touch with their community, and that this is going to take away some of the protections they're able to have for children, for youth that might be making bad decisions. I can see, for example, an 18-year-old high school student, severe bullying situation. Either they're scared or they're the bully, or maybe there's a little mental instability, and a sheriff saying, I'm not going to grant that right now, I don't want to. Under this bill, the sheriff would not have a choice. They would have to grant that permit to his child. The ability to deal with out-of-state, out-of-county felons. There are some states that have statewide information systems that are shared between all law enforcement. We do not have that. As our NRA rep pointed out, one of the areas he pointed out is what we would use to be a triple I, which is a national NCIC index. It's an interstate identification index. However, officers are not able to run that in the field by themselves. They have to contact somebody, and they have to have somebody in a records or a jail that's got access to an actual terminal to run that anywhere in the state. Nobody has that ability. To do that, there has to be a nexus to criminal activity. An officer can't choose to just run one of those. If there is no assumed reason to have a permit, the person doesn't have a permit with them, I see some significant legal challenges coming our way, and the FBI, for instance, saying that's not a legal use of our triple I system under an NCIC for an officer to even run that check. If we had a system with shared information, a system like Florida, and that had been funded and implemented within the state, that concern would certainly go away. But right now, an officer's ability to check that index would be very limited. I also worry about the residency without being defined and tied. That's certainly a simple fix within this bill, but it should be identified as which residency requirement we're going to use. And law enforcement obviously will operate under several different, depending on which code or enforcement avenue that we're taking from the legislation that's currently in place. Also, an officer's ability to determine that residency. So without any type of a background check, are we going to go off the statement, or are we going to have any ability to really look to see what that is? What that takes us to is an inability for an officer to really implement the law as written. I completely agree that the concept of somebody taking their coat on or coat off is an issue of concern for our citizenry when they come into the city and they've got a concealed weapon. However, I will tell you, our crimes in the city, I've never had a offense committed by somebody that was doing an open carry. It's somebody that's carrying a concealed weapon. The Terry versus Ohio, as was mentioned, is actually a significant concern. Terry versus Ohio has two elements. One is a suspicion that the person is dangerous. You got to have an articulable suspicion that the person is dangerous. Another, that a crime has occurred or is about to occur. Certainly, if we take the element of having a concealed weapon and making that perfectly legal for anybody in that state, that weakens any Terry versus Ohio approach an officer would take. Another section of the law which I've come to have concerns with as I reviewed it is the lack of a check, a lack of a background, which happens now under the current system of permitting for somebody that might be severely mentally ill, a narcotic analgesic, addiction that's severe. And then when I say narcotic analgesics, we're talking about drugs like heroin. So under the current law, that's illegal. You cannot receive a concealed weapons permit. You can't, the same logic which has been presented today, you can't legally carry. Those elements are still within the law. So whether you're an addict, you have a severe mental illness, which might make you a danger to society, you're a convicted felon, all of those are contained still within the language, but there's no realistic way for an officer to implement that in the field. Now, if you happen to be individually familiar with the person that's carrying the weapon illegally, certainly an officer can take action. If you have another crime which the person has committed and you're able to obtain a triple I and get the information that the person is a convicted felon out of state or some other county within the state, you can take action. Most officers in the